Hello there and welcome to Dreamy Minds. Somewhere tonight, a quiet silence reaches across the sky. Above you, immeasurable miles of breathless velvet darkness stretch outward, stitched with ancient light. Stars appear not all at once, but like slow thoughts gently surfacing across an open mind. And here you are, breathing, small but not lost, connected to something deeper than space, more ancient than the stars themselves. Somewhere between the hush of space and the hush of your breath, the mind begins to soften. This moment is made for stillness. You've arrived, not at the edge of the universe, but perhaps at the soft edge of sleep. And before the quiet takes you completely, let's take just a little time together to wonder, slowly, gently, about the science of the night sky, but not as students, as travelers, dreamers, humans who can feel overwhelmed and tired, and yet still drawn to the distant comfort of faraway stars. Tonight we won't rush to name constellations or define galaxies. Instead, we'll wander through what the sky feels like, what it opens inside the mind, what happens in the brain when we look up and feel a hush like reverence. Because in the folds of your own brain, the same patterns of mystery exist. Quiet, star-like signals, speaking in the hushed tongue of neurons and dreams. The science we will journey through is soft. It holds no urgency, no performance. It's not here to prove, only to offer a calm thread to follow. A thread that leads from the warmth of your mind to the farthest shimmer of a distant star. Let's lay back. Let the night open around us. Let your thoughts slow like falling light. And listen to a kind of science made for sleep. The stars do not shout to be known. They wait. Quietly, sometimes for millions of years, their light wandering across the velvet dark, just to reach the soft surface of your eyes. And yet, in the instant you look up, your body begins to remember them, not with language or logic, but with something older, deeper, something that says, I've seen this before. You may not remember when, but your nervous system does. Somewhere in the folds of your brain, a hush begins. The amygdala, that small almond of emotion, softens. The hippocampus begins to cradle the scene, sending quiet signals that say, this is safe, this is meaningful, remember this. And in your chest, breath begins to slow, as if to match the light it has just now received. Because starlight, my friend, is more than something you see, it's something you feel, and science gently agrees. In the limbic system, that emotional heart of your brain, the stars stir activity not so different from the feeling of love or awe or sacred nostalgia. Neuroscientists have found that when someone experiences aesthetic chills, those electric, wordless waves that move down the spine, during moments of overwhelming beauty, certain ancient regions of the brain light up like music. One of them is the periaqueductal gray, part of the midbrain. That's often activated during experiences of connection, peace, and surrender. Another is the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, where emotional meaning is shaped softly from the clay of experience. So the next time you find yourself beneath a night sky, nearly holding your breath, with goosebumps pricking your skin like static from the stars themselves, know that a quiet symphony is playing inside you, something deeply human and deeply, quietly neurochemical. And here's something else that science has learned, something beautiful in its simplicity. When you look up at the stars, your brain often releases a delicate blend of mood-balancing chemicals, serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin, not loud like adrenaline, not sharp like cortisol, but calm like waves folding against a midnight shore. These molecules move through you as starlight does, slow. clear and with deep intention. Even the default mode network, often associated with daydreaming, introspection and the wandering mind, begins to hum gently under the night sky. It's been shown that moments of deep awe, especially in nature or while contemplating the universe, tune this network into a quiet, reflective state. The mind moves inward gently, but it also expands beyond the edges of self, reaching, floating, drifting. Much like stars themselves, your thoughts begin to orbit meaning. And all of these emotions and brainwaves and signals begin with light. Just light, but not any light. Light that has traveled for longer than memory. Light that began its journey long before you were born, long before language was written, perhaps even before the earth itself had mountains to cast shadows upon. To see starlight is to look into time itself, a visual echo from another era, a quiet myth unfolding in slow photons. Scientists have estimated that the closest stars to Earth send us light that takes years to reach us, and the more distant ones, thousands, millions even. So every time you stare into the canopy of night, you're not looking at now, you're looking at then, at old fire, ancient beams, delayed brilliance. You're witnessing a choir of histories, woven silently into the fabric of a single sky. And somewhere, your body is aware of this. Even if it doesn't understand the numbers, the mind responds to scale, to age, to silence, from the neurons in your visual cortex to the quieting of your breath rate. Your nervous system recognizes that something immense is present, and it does what all wise things do. In the presence of greatness, it humbles itself, it quiets, it listens. Perhaps this is why we feel not alone, but held beneath the stars. Perhaps this is why we associate stars with wishes and dreams and messages sent through time. Something in us knows that light does not arrive here by accident. It takes effort and patience and some force of mystery greater than we can hold. And maybe your body, in all its human weariness, relaxes a little in the face of this cosmic effort. It senses that it too is made of ancient light, that it too has traveled great distances just to be here, now, resting. Carl Sagan once said, "We are a way for the universe to know itself, and whether or not your eyes are closed yet, that knowing still glows like a gentle lantern. Inside the folds of your mind, the stars are not watching you, but they are with you. Remember this, the light you see in the sky tonight may be thousands of years old, but so is your awe, so is your wonder, so is the capacity in your brain to honor beauty with silence. We were shaped by these skies, the same way the land was shaped by stardust, the same way thought is shaped by stillness. And though the world may feel heavy sometimes, the stars have always been light, and that light has always been a memory, made just for you. So let their memory become yours tonight. Let your heart beat quiet, let your breath soften, let your amygdala rest, let thought dissolve gently into dream. The starlight will take its time reaching you. It always has. And now, you are ready to receive it. Sleep slow, sleep star-bound, sleep in the memory of light. Somewhere overhead, far beyond the noise of day, and just beneath the velvet hush of night, the stars are speaking again, not in words, not in sound, but in something softer, like memory without shape, or light gently rearranged. And you are listening in the oldest way possible, the way we've always listened to the stars, not with only the eyes, but with the heart, the imagination, the quiet pulse of story unfolding in the mind from the very beginning. We've drawn lines between the lights, A cluster of stars becomes a hunter. A curve becomes a scorpion's tail. A set of shimmering dots becomes a bear, or a goddess, or the boat of a hero sailing through the dark. We've never been able to leave the sky untouched. We dream into it. And that dreaming is exactly what the brain was built for. Your brain's love of constellations is more than poetic. It is biological, deeply ingrained. We are, at our core, pattern makers, woven into our neural fabric. Is the unshakable instinct to find meaning in chaos. There is a name for this: pareidolia. It is the lovely, strange tendency to see familiar patterns, especially faces, in random shapes. The clouds become castles, the bark of a tree becomes a gaze, a burnt piece of toast becomes a smile, and the stars become stories. The stars demand no such transformation. They shine just the same, whether we see Orion or not. But the mind would rather imagine a story than leave a sky uncared for. Somewhere deep inside, the brain reaches through the dark and says, "Let this mean something. Let this be a shape I can hold." This instinct isn't merely a quirk. It's a survival mechanism, refined over millennia by a world where pattern meant protection. Long ago, for our early ancestors, the ability to spot a predator's face in the grass, to see the shape of a friend in the firelight, was not poetic, it was essential. And now, in the soft safety of your room, your modern brain still holds the same reflex: to organize the random, to arrange the stars, to draw lines in the sky so you don't feel so alone. It's in the occipital lobe that this magic begins, the region near the back of your head, quietly receiving light that lands in the eye and turning it into pictures you can live inside. This is the visual world translated. Color, light, shape, motion, all woven into perception, right at the edge of silence. And at night, when the input from the world softens, when the lights dim and distractions fall away, this region becomes fertile ground for dreams to rise. The lower the noise, the more clearly we can imagine. Just as the stars appear brightest against the darkest sky, the inner vision of the brain shines best in stillness. This is one reason we often feel more creative by moonlight, more inspired beside the stars. In the darkness, the default mode network gently takes the wheel, allowing the brain to drift inward, toward memory. Symbol, imagination. You begin to fill in what you can't see. You project inwardly what the night hides. You supply shape when the world offers none. And in that space, the constellations appear, first in the sky, then in you. What began as navigation tools for ancient sailors and seasonal maps for early farmers have become, over and over again, symbols of something entirely human: our refusal to see the world as random. We made Perseus and Andromeda from scattered pinpricks of ice-cold light. We strung together hopeless romance, cosmic battles, and celestial myths from nothing but quiet stars. But isn't that what the brain does all the time? Isn't the human mind just a night sky of signals, with neurons blinking, sparking, synchronizing meaning from mystery? Your thoughts connect. Memories, dreams, emotions, much like stars are joined in the sky. You are not the observer of constellations. You are the constellation. You are stardust accessing its own stories. And perhaps that's what story has always been: a constellation of ideas, linked not with facts, but with feeling. You've done this before, in your own life. Taken scattered moments, a glance, a word, a tone, and formed them into meaning, into memory, into identity. This didn't happen in the stars. It happened in your neurons, your brain, always trying to make sense of the chaos of time. of pain, of changes too big to name. Draws emotional constellations too. They don't need to be accurate. They just need to help us feel. So tonight, if your thoughts are scattered, if your memories arrive out of order, like stars refusing formation, it's okay. They don't have to organize themselves now. Just let yourself drift into the dark, non-linear rhythm of the mind. Let your inner sky arrange what it needs, even if it takes time, even if the images are unclear right now, even if the stories haven't found their shape. The constellations will come. They always do. As you settle deeper into the hush of night, know this: the sky you're drifting beneath is full of human longing. Each constellation, a reflection of the nervous system, longing to find peace between thoughts. When ancient eyes looked upward, they were not seeking science articles. They were seeking comfort, context, a feeling of belonging. And your brain, this magnificent tangle of electrochemical stardust, still seeks the same. It looks into the dark and gently asks, "Where is my place in all of this?" And the stars answer, not directly, but through the story they invite, through the lines you get to draw. So dream now, not just any dream, but the kind that maps moments together, the kind that draws new constellations from the scattered light of your own becoming. Maybe tonight you'll dream of stars that move, of bright signals that speak in symbols, or perhaps you'll simply drift under a sky that doesn't need explanation, only your awe. That awe is enough. That awe is the map. Sleep deeply under it. Float in a mind that knows how to make sense. Even when nothing seems linear, relax into thoughts that come like stars, not forced, but simply appearing. When the sky is ready, you don't need to explain it, just feel it. You are the dreamer of constellations, the storyteller made of stars, and tonight, the stars are dreaming. There's a moment, quiet and wordless, when you look up at the night sky, and something inside you lets go. It doesn't happen all at once. Maybe it starts with a breath, slowing just slightly as your eyes meet the vastness above you. Maybe it happens in your chest, a loosening of something unnameable, a soft exhale of all you've been holding. And for a fleeting second, it feels like you're not looking at the sky, it's looking through you. Everything becomes very still, and your thoughts, so loud just moments before, begin to dissolve into the dark like ink in water. What is that feeling? That sudden sacred quiet? That clearness wrapped in wonder? That gentle sense of smallness that somehow doesn't frighten you? It's not loneliness. It's not loss. It's something else. A kind of surrender, a gravitational softening of the self. And strangely, your brain is wired to love it. Science has a gentle name for this feeling: awe. Though it sounds simple, this one small word unlocks a deep ocean of emotional and neurological change. Because in the presence of something truly vast, truly beautiful, something that stretches far beyond the edge of comprehension, the brain does something extraordinary. It pauses. That self-chattering voice in your head, the one always narrating, comparing, planning, quiets down. In the language of soft neuroscience, we call this voice the default mode network, a group of brain regions involved in self-referential thinking. It is here that your identity lingers. Here, your internal monologue unfolds. Here, your worries often live. But in moments of awe, just like the ones felt beneath a star-drenched sky, activity in this network slows. And with it, your sense of separateness begins to fade. Not in a scary way, but in a way that feels free. Researchers have seen this in real time. Drops in default mode network activity mirror the felt sense of ego dissolution, a softening of the eye in favor of a deeper, broader awareness. Suddenly, you are not the center of the story. You are a part of it. There is something profoundly restful about that, not having to carry the whole narrative, not having to know everything, fix everything, be everything, just to be small. And okay with that, to be stardust among stardust, gravity among gravity, a moment inside a sky, much older than any of your thoughts. And that relief, that pause in self, is not abstract. It's physical, it's biological. Awe doesn't just feel calming, it is calming. Studies show that awe triggers shifts in the parasympathetic nervous system, the part of your body dedicated to rest, digestion, and recovery. Heart rate slows. Muscles unclench, even slightly. The breath deepens without effort. In awe, the nervous system whispers back to the body, "You can rest here." And as that awe continues to move inward, gravity begins to do its part. Not the kind of gravity that holds down your body, though that too is a quiet partner in your rest, but a subtler form, a tug that says, "Come home, lie down, let yourself return to stillness." The truth is, your body has always been whispering to gravity. From the first moment you were placed upon this earth, your sleep-wake rhythms have followed the pull of over 9.8 meters per second squared. Gravity shapes your circadian rhythm, the inner clock ticking gently inside your brain. It tells you when to rise and when to fall, when to be alert and when to soften. And it's not just poetic. The suprachiasmatic nucleus, a tiny cluster of neurons in your brain's hypothalamus, receives data about daylight, its presence and its absence. And from this information, it creates a rhythm. As night falls and stimulation dimmers, as your body reclines, gravity and darkness combine to stir the release of melatonin, your body's biochemical lantern, guiding you into sleep. So when you lie beneath the stars, or imagine yourself doing so now, you are aligning with more than beauty. You are synchronizing with millions of years of sleep biology. Even the simple act of lying down is a signal to the nervous system it's time to rest. Blood pressure shifts. Muscle tone gently reduces. The heart finds a slower rhythm. That's gravity, pulling you not down, but inward. Inward into the self. Inward into the mind. Inward into the quiet, where rest begins. To feel held by the earth. To gaze at a sky that needs nothing from you. To recognize your smallness, not as inadequacy, but as a rare opportunity to be a part of something infinite and safe. This is not weakness, it is peace. Awe brings humility, gravity brings anchoring, and together they form a cradle, the stars above, the earth below, and you in between. Falling softly inward, somewhere in your chest, the edges of urgency soften. Somewhere behind your eyes, the brightness of thought turns to embers. Somewhere inside your mind, you are becoming less of a me and more of a part of this night, a part of its breath, a part of its endless, weightless drift between stars. Let your sense of self blur gently now, like mist between galaxies. Let the sky lovingly outscale you. Let your heartbeat align with something ancient. Awe, they say, is the emotion of something bigger. But maybe it's more than that. Maybe awe is the emotion of remembering you're not alone, that you never were. Just a piece of sky in a human shape. Finally, at rest. Sleep now. If your thoughts try to convince you otherwise, remind them. To feel awe is to feel safe. To feel gravity is to feel held. To feel small is to know you don't have to carry it all. In this quiet orbit of sleep, nothing needs solving, only softening. You are not falling apart. You are simply falling inward, held by gravity, healed by awe. Home at last. Let us turn gently now toward the moon. That slow, quiet lantern moving through the dark sky in perfect rhythm. It does not rush. It does not shine all the time. And yet, we trust it to return. Night after night, in its wandering phases, new, crescent, full, and gone again. The moon reminds us of something essential, that nothing is meant to be full all the time. We have always looked to the moon for meaning, for stories, for soft guidance in the dark. The sun tells us when to act, but the moon tells us when to feel. She is the keeper of quiet clocks inside us, not just by pulling tides in distant oceans, but by whispering to the waters within. Those subtle chemical tides that ebb and flow through the human brain, the human heart, the human cycle. You may not feel it consciously, but your body knows her rhythm. You are not only a child of the earth, you are a child of its moon. It begins with the tides, the moon's gravity, reaching across 238,000 miles of space, pulls gently on oceans both vast and invisible. Twice a day the water listens. It rises, it recedes, it moves like breath. And the brain, which is nearly 75% water, is part of this ancient dance. Some scientists have wondered aloud, could the moon's gravity touch us as deeply as it touches the sea? Could our inner tides be real? While the physical pull may be subtle, what's less disputed is the way the lunar cycle can influence the rhythms inside the body. We call it the circulunar rhythm, a biological cycle that roughly mirrors the 29.5-day orbit of the moon around the Earth. You know the circadian rhythm, your daily sleep-wake cycle, entrained by light and dark. But beneath that, there is another rhythm, more ancient, more winding, and perhaps more mysterious, the monthly moon rhythm. This rhythm shows itself most clearly in menstrual cycles, which align closely, often eerily so, with lunar phases. Even in early human societies, time was measured not in days, but in moons. For many people, the inner body still listens to that slow orbit with tender ovulation, rest, creativity, release, waxing, waning, shadows and light, inner and outer, synchronized. But the moon speaks to more than hormones. She may also softly shape the quality of our sleep. Science here is a whisper, not a decree. Some studies, like one from 2013, found that around the full moon, people took longer to fall asleep, slept fewer hours, and had reduced deep, slow wave sleep, the kind most restorative to the brain and body. Melatonin levels, too, may slightly drop when the moon is full, though researchers still debate why. There are variables, of course, light pollution, lifestyle, even suggestion. But something in us still suspects what our ancestors always believed, that under the full moon, the dream world shifts, that sleep deepens, softens, or stirs, that the tides inside the mind pull a little higher. Have you noticed it? Those nights when moonlight slips across your pillow, like a soft question, when your thoughts feel more alive, more reflective, or perhaps harder to still, when dreams bloom vivid and strange, colored by emotion the next morning. You're not imagining it, you're remembering something. The body already knows that the moon has always moved through us, as much as she moves through the sky. In dreams, she appears often, a symbol of intuition, of guidance, of the deep feminine mystery that refuses to be rushed. Psychoanalysts like Carl Jung believed the moon represented the unconscious self, that inner ocean of thought and feeling that exists too deep for words. And in many ancient and indigenous cultures, the moon was not just a rock in space. She was a presence, a goddess, a keeper of secrets that revealed themselves in the dark. Somewhere in your mind tonight, the moon may already be speaking, not in language, but in rhythms, in the cycle of thoughts that return and fade, like tides against sand, in emotions that swell, not because you are broken, but because you are human, lunar, living. And perhaps this too is comfort. The moon never stays in one phase, neither do you. You wax, you wane. Some nights, you are full of light, brilliant, expressive, easy to see. Other nights, you are shadowy and new, quiet, internal, resting beneath the surface. Neither is wrong. Both are sacred. There is no shame in needing less light or in needing time before you rise. You are not always meant to shine. Sometimes you are meant to heal. Sleep researchers have long held that darkness is not a lack, but a signal, a message sent to the brain that it is time to stop doing and begin resting. And who better to deliver that message than the moon, the tender ambassador of night? She does not control the sun. She reflects it. She does not make her own light. She shows us how to soften what is already there. So tonight, if the light of the moon finds its way through your window, or even if it doesn't, know that it has already reached you in softer ways, through your hormones, through your stories, through the slow drift of your breath toward deeper sleep. If you feel a little more awake tonight, take heart. If you feel a little more emotional, a little more dreamlike, that too is part of the lunar pull. Nothing is wrong. You are just doubly alive tonight, doubly inside the sky. So breathe now, not like a task, but like a tide. In. Out, like waves brushing the edges of the moonlight, like feelings that come and go, without needing to be solved. You are not linear, you are lunar. Let the day's tensions dissolve. In slow orbits of thought, even in your stillness, you are turning. Sleep under her rhythm. Sleep inside a sky that understands change. Sleep like the moon, silently shifting, without effort, without fear, glowing or hidden, but always whole, waxing, waning, resting like you. And now, as the sky above settles into its deepest dark, as constellations find their rhythm, and the moon's arc begins to quiet, we return inward, toward the stars that shine not just above us, but within, because somewhere, glowing behind the curtain of your closed eyes, another sky is forming, one made of pulses, patterns, neural lights flickering in quiet cooperation. Not unlike a galaxy hums with stars, your brain is preparing itself for one of the most beautiful things it knows how to do. Sleep and darkness has always been misunderstood, often thought of as absence, an emptying out, a cessation, when in truth, darkness is not where the world ends. It's where the unseen begins. In the sky, darkness reveals the stars. In the forest, it returns balance to the ecosystem. And in the mind, darkness is the signal that allows the body to begin its quiet transformation. The moment darkness falls, your brain begins listening differently. Photoreceptors in the eye, small light-sensitive cells called melanopsin, register the dimming of blue light. This information travels to a tiny but mighty structure at the base of the brain, the pineal gland. And then, like clockwork, the pineal gland begins releasing its signature sleep messenger, melatonin. This subtle hormone, secreted in response to night, is like the first quiet song of an orchestra, before a great symphony begins. Melatonin doesn't force sleep, it invites it. It coaxes the body into slowing, softening, increasing body temperature in the core, making the eyes feel heavier, whispering to the muscles, "It's okay now. The world is dark. You're safe to rest." Our ancestors lived without artificial light. When the sun set, so did they. And in that natural rhythm, darkness guiding melatonin, melatonin guiding dreams, they aligned effortlessly with the stars. Tonight, so will you. As your inner sky darkens, your brain's activity changes shape. Electrical signals, tiny threads of thought and sensation, begin their calm descent. From beta waves of focus and thinking, to alpha waves of softness and receptivity, down to theta and delta waves, the brain's slowest, most dream-bound pulses. These slow rhythms are like the lull between ocean tides, or the slow blinking of distant star fields. On the edge of space, measured by Eeg, delta waves move like peaceful shadows, not noise but deep, slow sacredness. And in this slowed rhythm, in the quiet beyond thought, healing begins. Inside the night of your body, in the skull-shaped sky of your mind, some of the most vital work happens while you drift. There is a system inside the brain, called the glymphatic system, like a hidden river that activates in deep sleep. It was only recently discovered, but has always been there, working softly at night, rinsing the brain with cerebrospinal fluid, clearing out toxins, including the proteins linked to memory loss, confusion, stress. This gentle brainwash, a nightly cleansing we don't feel or see, is one of the most important functions of sleep. When the sky clears, we see stars. When the brain clears, we awaken renewed. Isn't it beautiful that night is not for doing? Night is for undoing, unraveling, cleansing the space for tomorrow's light. And then, as your sleep deepens, dreaming begins to bloom. The brain does not become still in dreams. It lights up. During REM sleep, your visual cortex, the same region that processes what you see, becomes beautifully active. But there are no real sights, only internal ones. Images emerge not from your eyes, but from within the mind itself. A second sky, a projected world made of memory, metaphor, and meaning. Scientists still cannot say exactly why we dream, only that we must, that it helps consolidate memory, that it may soften trauma, that it invites us to feel freely, without consequence. Dreams flow along old emotional rivers in the brain. The amygdala, where fear and memory intersect, grows more active in dreams. The hippocampus, that gentle keeper of your remembered life, shuffles and organizes what needs to be kept and what can now be released. Every night, your sleeping brain becomes a librarian, a healer, a quiet architect of stories only you will know. No one else can dream your dreams for you. They are yours, private constellations of the mind. So here you are, beneath the stars, within the stars, your body slowing, your thoughts gentle, drifting. And in your brain, the silent sky is lighting up. In places no telescope could ever find, neurons firing softly, synapses rethreading the fabric of who you are becoming, cells cleaning, memories softening, emotions loosening their grip, like fingers unwinding. One miracle of all this, perhaps the calmest miracle of all, is that it asks nothing of you. You do not need to try. You do not need to perform the sleep. You only need to allow it, to trust that your body has already begun the descent, to know that your resting mind is not nothing, It is galaxies in slow motion. So now, as you float deeper into sleep, imagine this: a night sky version of your brain, a universe not above but within, firing in constellations, communicating in light, tending to your memories like starlight touching petals, washing your thoughts clean like morning rain. And maybe, just maybe, all those stars you see in the sky aren't just there for you to look at. Maybe they are mirrors, reflections, echoes of the intelligent silence unfolding inside your own mind. The sky doesn't end above you. It continues downward, inward, into the gentle cathedral of neurons and dreams. If we've learned anything tonight, it's this: you are made of the same substance as the stars, and like them, you shine in sleep. So rest now, traveler of light. Let your pulse slow with the poetry of planets. Let your breath drift like a drifting cloud, passing in front of the moon. You're not alone. Every star above you has its counterpart within. Sleep, and let them speak, let them dream, let them hold you till morning. Because tonight, the stars are sleeping inside your brain. And now the sky is full, not with answers, but with space, softness, possibility. No sky has all the light, but it has enough to trust the dark, just like you. Your mind tonight carries the faint glow of every scientific wonder we've softened into, the distant shimmer of memory, the pattern-making need for meaning, the gravitational hush that folds the self inward, the moon's quiet pull on tides and thoughts, and the healing stars blinking quietly inside your sleeping brain. There is a kind of science that doesn't rush toward conclusion, only holds you closer to the wonder of being alive. The stars did not arrive to explain themselves. They arrived to shine and be felt. And maybe so did you. So sleep now, not like an end, but like a return to silence, to softness, to that deep cellular knowing that you are part of something vast, something intelligent, something still. Let the stars keep watch tonight. Let your breath become slow moonlight. The science will still be here in the morning. But for now, sleep and drift among stars. If this journey beneath the stars brought you peace or stirred something quiet and curious in your heart, I'd love for you to stay a while. You're always welcome here. So if you'd like to drift through more sleep stories like this one, gentle science, soft wonder, and whispered reflections, just tap subscribe and let the universe send more starlit dreams your way. If this helped you rest, or if someone you care about needs a moment of calm, feel free to like or share this journey with them. It means more than you know. And wherever you sleep tonight, beneath actual stars or the ones inside your mind, know that you're not alone. We're all just stardust, trying to rest. Thanks for watching. Good night.